What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 90 of Ceraulo Sports Talk with me, Joe Ceraulo. We've got a really special episode today. One of my favorite guests making, I believe it's your fourth appearance on my 90 episodes. It is Mike Golic Jr., host of the Gojo Pod over at DraftKings. Mike, thanks for coming in today.
No, appreciate it. Four out of 90 is a good ratio. I'll take that.
It's not bad. You know, you're right up there with like Orlovsky and like Lofa Tatupu is my most recurring guests.
Man, that's quite a trio in that group. And I would say, especially excluding Orlovsky, good taste on that one, since we have donuts in front of us that Dan would recoil at right now. I love Dan to death, but I'm sure just this proximity to donuts would give him hives.
Has Dan ever seasoned food in his life?
No, I think the worst day on the internet for Dan, who I think really loves going and just dropping what he knows are bad food takes onto the internet.
He does.
The peak of that was when he pulled open his spice rack that I think maybe had salt and pepper in it at home. So it's an interesting life choice for Dan. I know, big fitness guy, loves the beachbody.com workouts, but at some point, I think the NFL Live crew around him has done a really good job. Mina Kimes, Marcus Spears, Laura Rutledge, of introducing him to flavor as they've gone along, and it's been wonderful watching him spread his wings.
I love that crew, by the way. You've got Dan, who, like you said, maybe there's salt and pepper on his spice rack, and then Marcus Spears is like the human embodiment of spice.
Yes, Marcus is human seasoning. Marcus, and in all seriousness, Dan's an awesome guy, an awesome analyst, and he is so dedicated to the craft that he supplies all these original opinions and all these things that come from all that film study. You've got everyone kind of occupying a role, and Marcus Spears is the ultimate teammate. Marcus Spears can walk into any room and make every person in that room feel like they're the most important part of that process, like they are an equal with someone who's accomplished as much as Marcus Spears has. That's a hard thing to do, and he does it effortlessly. It's awesome. He is one of the best people I've ever been around.
Yeah, he's great. The show's great. But Mike, you did allude to the donuts in front of us. So, for those of you who have listened to the first 89 episodes of Ceraulo Sports Talk, you all know that I do a segment almost every episode called the Ceraulo Pick Six. Well, in honor of having Mike here, the man who made the term Thick Six famous, we are going to do the Ceraulo Thick Six. We've got 6 different types of donuts. We're going to eat a donut, rate the donut, and then dive into a different topic. So, Mike, are you ready for the first donut?
I think so, yeah. Let's
do it. Let's do it. I think we got an apple fritter on top.
Oh, all right. Fritter Nation. Stand up.
This is this thing's legit. What are we thinking about the apple fritter?
Strong. Good,
Yeah.
good outer crust. It's good crunch. It's good and soft in the middle. That's an 8 out of 10. That's a good donut.
This is, I will admit, this donut shop right by my apartment. I, just like you, recently moved to LA. I got out here in April. You got here when? June?
June.
And you need, when you move somewhere new, you need to set a foundation, right? You need a pizza spot. Can't really get that in LA. You need a bagel spot. Can't really get that in LA. This is, we're both from the Northeast. I got a donut spot, though, and this is it. And the apple fritter is my go-to donut at that place.
It's one of the most important relationships that you can set in your life. When I lived in West Hartford, Connecticut, a shop called Donut Crazy opened about 100 yards from my house.
Oh, wow.
And I made it my mission to go over there and support them and make sure that they were going to survive. This was pre-pandemic and all that, but all along the way, owner became a close friend of mine, went over there all the time, and so having a spot like that, like Cheer style, where everyone knows your name, vital in the donut game.
Amazing. So let's dive into the first topic. This is a pretty relevant one for you. Notre Dame football.
Yep.
Season's over. You guys are going bowling. Congrats. 8-4, first year under Marcus Freeman. First off, give me your overall thoughts on the season. On Marcus's first full year, obviously came in for the bowl game a year ago. Marshall, Stanford, those games were disappointing, obviously. But what do you think? 8-4, how you feeling?
I came off that feeling really good for just what you mentioned. There was a lot of adversity early on in the season. I think overall in college football this year, we saw a pretty interesting trend emerge. First-year head coaches had a lot of success. You looked up and down the top 15 most of this year. Lincoln Riley, not a first-time head coach, but a first year at his new school at USC. Dan Lanning, first-time head coach going over to Oregon, had them up near in the top 15 for most of college football season. Marcus in that mix. Sonny Dykes at TCU, again, not a first-time head coach, but first year at TCU, likely on the verge of a college football playoff berth. And so it is possible to come in and microwave success pretty early in the portal era, but Marcus, we know it was a bit of a different situation. Yeah. He was in-house there at Notre Dame as the defensive coordinator. You're coming off 5 straight double-digit win seasons with Brian Kelly, who had been a seasoned coach, the all-time winningest coach in Notre Dame history, which is a wild thing to say at that school. And so for Marcus, I think the context of that is important coming in. He came in and instantly revitalized recruiting. They're currently like the number 3 recruiting class for 23 in most recruiting outlets. And I think just in general had a different energy. He's a younger coach and someone that's leaning into so much of what's good about modern football. The on-field stuff was going to be an adjustment when you haven't done those things before, and you open up the season against an Ohio State team that was number 2 in the country until this last week. The stakes feel a little bit different, and for him early in that season, starting off 0-2 with that loss against Marshall on there, having all the noise around the program for him and offensive coordinator Tommy Rees, and for that locker room, those players hadn't lost multiple games like that in a season in quite some time. They had won, everyone who had been on campus there, outside of the freshmen, had only won double-digit games in their time at Notre Dame. Yeah. And so it could have been a shock for them. They could have folded up and said, well, the college football playoffs out of the picture. We don't have those normal lofty goals we're used to. And instead, they went to work. And you can see all across the board, from the quarterback in Drew Pine, who started the year as a backup. Tyler Buckner, the starter, got hurt early in the season in that game against Marshall. And then from there on, Drew Pine wasn't perfect. He's not the most talented guy in the world. But by the time we got to the USC game, played by far his best game of the year. The offensive line gelled together. Defense had a new coordinator and a new voice in their ear in Al Golden. And all of that, I think you saw so many people step up and improve. A lot of young guys in skill areas that Notre Dame hasn't always been known for step up in a big way down the stretch. And so I was encouraged by the trajectory, because that kind of development is, to me, indicative of coaching. It's having the right people in the building, and a testament to the players in that locker room and the kind of leadership they demonstrated through the season.
Yeah, I mean, you really summed that up really well. It was a tough start to the year, but overall, when you look at the way that they finished, they beat North Carolina handily, and North Carolina, I think at the time of that game, people didn't realize just how good Drake May and the Tar Heels were.
Man.
Then you guys whooped Clemson. I mean, if the Marshall and Stanford games don't happen, right? If they're corrected, maybe if there's a little more chemistry between the coaching staff, the players, you guys could have easily gone into that USC game with that game being a winner goes to the college football playoff matchup.
100%. And you know what? Those games did happen, though. Mm-hmm. And this Notre Dame team this year, towards the end of Brian Kelly's era, had prided themselves on, they had a streak, something ridiculous. I think it was like 40-plus games without losing to an unranked opponent.
Wow.
And they had started to, and I think that's the hallmark of a great team, is you don't go out there, you win all the winnable games, you make your layups, and then Notre Dame had problems on the high end with the winning the big game stigma that's been there. But this team had to learn over again. And you saw this last year. There were a lot of close games against some not-so-great teams last season with Brian Kelly still at the helm, that a veteran coach and a veteran quarterback like they had last year can kind of cover up. This year you had to learn, all right, we can't just go out and out-talent everyone at this point that we're at in program development right now. You might get back to there pretty soon, but it requires that same effort week in and week out and that same attention to detail. And I was a part of a bunch of bad teams that had that wax and wane and would lose games we weren't supposed to Syracuse and Tulsa and UConn. And so it's part of that process, and to see them erase that by season's end was really encouraging.
Yeah, it absolutely was. Now, look, we spoke about this a little bit outside before we started taping. Caleb Williams. I mean, you said it best. They didn't lose to USC. They lost to Caleb Williams. What have you seen from this kid all year? I mean, I just, the Heisman to me is not even a competition anymore. Like CJ Stroud, 2 late interceptions, Drake May, back-to-back rough weeks. It's Caleb's award, right?
Yeah, and I think it's a reminder, right? The Heisman and the way that we administer it is always sort of an inexact science of a process, because if you want to talk about doing the most with the least, I think Drake May would qualify in that category. I think when you look in that offense, outside of one great skill receiver, you're looking at a team that turned over a bunch of talent, didn't block much in front of him, and on defense didn't stop anybody. And that guy still has them in the ACC championship game.
That's
and
fair.
Still had them within shouting distance until last week of a potential college football playoff berth. Like, until them and Clemson notched their second losses, that was a conversation that we were still having this season. And so I think Drake deserves a ton of credit for coming in and replacing Sam Howell, who was an all-timer at that school, and the first quarterback and max time back in North Carolina, and doing that. So I do want to couch it with that, because Caleb Williams has a bunch of talent around him. He's got a Joe Moore Award semifinalist offensive line in front of him. Yeah. Jordan Addison was the Biletnikoff winner last year that came over. So, but that being said, you just watch the way he goes about. When I was getting ready to just, start thinking about the Notre Dame SC game, I went back and watched, I think, the one other team defensively that I thought, all right, would be comparable. Oregon State held them to a bunch less points. I think the offense was in a different place then too, but Oregon State deserves a ton of credit. That's been a really fun team the last couple of years. But I went back and watched the Utah game, and in the first 4 plays of the Utah game, Caleb Williams made 3 plays that I rewound 8 times. Like 3 plays, that Zach Wilson pro day throw, where he was rolling left and threw the ball back across, the one that everyone replays now, ironically, because he's been benched. Caleb Williams did that throw in a real human game, and he put it on the money, and the receiver just happened to drop it early in that game. But he does the Mahomes stuff. He does the thing that maybe 5 guys walking the earth can do. And so in the course of that game, you saw Notre Dame defensively wasn't perfect, but a lot of that had to do with Caleb Williams as a run threat, being able to run some of those, zone read plays, especially down by the red zone. Him obviously being able to bail them out on 3rd and a mile when he can scramble around and no one seemed to be able to touch that guy. And so he's incredibly special. He's a nightmare for opposing teams, and for a coach making that transition to Southern Cal, what a blessing to have a player at the most important position who happens to be one of the most talented, who also knows your scheme coming over with you from Oklahoma and is able to help get all these guys up to speed preseason and as the year goes along.
Yeah, it's been a fun season. Fun first year for me. I've kind of adopted USC as my local team since moving out here.
Oh, good pick.
So it's worked out well.
Yeah, Big Ten country treating you well already.
Yeah, I mean, I got to kiss ass a little bit. Our boss is a USC alum. So
there you go. Hey, listen, smart man. Got to know to keep the right people happy.
Hey, it's almost renegotiation time. So
it's always a contract here.
Let's dive into another one. Although you're actually still finishing up that apple fritter, but I'll let you pick the next one.
All right.
We got some jelly in the corner.
Oh, I'm not a big jelly guy, so I'm going to go for this pumpkin pie thing here.
Pumpkin cream cheese.
Ooh, there we go.
Let's do that. All right. Pumpkin cream cheese, second donut. Cheers. What are we thinking?
I'd probably like a solid 6.5. It's good pumpkin flavor. I'm not a big filled donut guy.
Okay.
So
I'm glad I only got 2 of those then.
Yeah, no, exactly. Listen, it's part varieties of spice of life. It's part of the experiment.
That's very true.
Yeah, I'd say it's a rock solid. I do love pumpkin as a flavor. I know the whole basic tag gets lobbed at anyone that orders a PSL or something like that.
Very true.
Let it fly. Fall is fall, man. Pumpkin's a good flavor. It happens every year because people like it. Oh my God, so much drool. So much drool. No, the water ain't even going to help. It's not dry. It's lubed up here. This is what happens when I eat and try and do shows, which is bad because I eat and do shows a lot.
Is that a recurring theme for you?
Oh, yeah. Listen, I'm my father's son. My dad, for years, the bit on Mike and Mike was he would shove a whole donut in his mouth, read a sentence, and they would have people call in, and the person who guessed it right would get some sort of prize they were giving away that day.
That's incredible.
It's, the family gene pool is strong.
It obviously is. Well, look, I've always, struggled with this debate. When it's fall time, apple versus pumpkin. I'm an apple guy.
Really?
So for me, that fritter blew that pumpkin donut out of the water.
See, well, I think the fritter was more well done. I think this is also an issue of quality. I went 2 weeks ago. Where were we? I want to say...
Was that Baylor?
It might have been in Waco, where I had a donut that had a piece of pumpkin pie on top of it.
Wow.
And it was one of the more electric things that I had ever seen or experienced as a man. And that one, tremendously well done. You somehow got donut flavor and the pumpkin pie flavor all in one. So I would say the quality of that going up against the quality of that fritter would probably be a more equal fight. Because I'm generally out on apple. I don't like apple pie. I don't like eating apples normally here.
Interesting.
Pumpkin pie is, number 1 in my draft of Thanksgiving items.
Which we did a couple years ago on the show. We did a Thanksgiving snake draft.
Exactly.
That was one of the better moments in Ceraulo Sports Talk history through the first 90 episodes.
It's tried and true, man. People get down. I understand certain things we probably need to leave in the past. We probably don't need to have as much of the hot dog as a sandwich debate anymore.
Yeah.
We don't need to have as much as Die Hard a Christmas movie anymore.
Right.
But Thanksgiving plate draft, it's one of those tried and trues that we can go back to that everyone appreciates.
Every year it's relevant. So, second donut, second topic. Let's talk the Hugh Freeze hire.
Yeah.
I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. Look, we love a redemption story, but at the same time, was this an appropriate hire by the University of Auburn?
I want to be clear. It's not a redemption story. This is a story about people that want to win. Auburn wants to win badly, and they saw a guy beat Nick Saban 2 years in a row at Ole Miss, and they think that he can do that. And that's what this is, because there is a lot of this that's going to be difficult for people to digest. Yeah. This is not about what happened at Ole Miss. At Ole Miss, where, for anyone that was unfamiliar, Hugh Freeze was found by school officials to have made multiple calls to an escort service on a school-issued phone. He claims it was done by mistake. Multiple times is a mistake on that. You draw your own conclusions. That stuff, the probe about playing players, I don't really care about that stuff. What you do inside your marriage, not my business. What you do paying players, we see it happening now all the time. It's got a legal name in NIL. I think that's objectively great. I think players deserve money, and so I have no problem with that, even if, some of that stuff you can say is inconsistent with the persona that he puts forward publicly. But when you go and look at Liberty, there was a young woman there who was a part of a 20-person lawsuit against the university for mishandling sexual assault cases on campus. This young woman was an alleged sexual assault victim that received a DM unprompted from Hugh Freeze in defense of Ian McCaw, their athletic director, who was also the athletic director at Baylor during the Art Briles scandal there, and questioned why, saying she didn't know Ian McCaw and that he was a Christ-like leader. And she put these DMs out there not to do anything other than to say, I don't want to have contact with this person. I'm putting this out here to let him know I do not want to have this kind of contact. And so the one thing I want to make abundantly clear is people that are objecting to this do not object to what happened at Ole Miss. That is, whatever you want to deal with morally there, but it is about what happened at Liberty and that being part of something, because redemption narrative, second chances have to happen when progress has been made and there's actual contrition that's shown, and I don't think we've seen that in this situation. So once again, this is about Auburn making a choice about winning that we see happen time and time again. Deshaun Watson's getting ready to play a football game this week. Yeah. We see organizations and teams and groups in sports make decisions that are in their mind in the best interest of winning.
That's a good way to look at it. I think a lot of people are focusing on the Ole Miss thing because obviously Hugh Freeze has coached in the SEC and Ole Miss is more relevant to that than what's going on at Liberty. But isn't it? I mean, look, you went to a Catholic school in Notre Dame, one of two Catholic FBS schools, and isn't it just wild how you have a school like Liberty that speaks so much of religion, and then you look at all the corruption there? I don't know if you saw that Hulu documentary about the president who was paying the pool boy.
Oh yeah, it's and listen, it's certainly that's a larger scale conversation even than this, as far as the other policies that occur on campus there at Liberty. And so that's certainly again kind of a microcosm of what we see in sports in general, but definitely in college sports in a lot of places.
Yeah. Now, when you look at other coaches that might be on the move, Deion Sanders, obviously the biggest name. There are reports that he's more likely than not to take the Colorado gig. Do you think Deion going to Colorado is a good idea? I mean, what he's done at Jackson State's been incredible. I feel like he can do better when he's ready than Colorado.
Yeah, I've heard interesting stuff on that. I don't think Deion's going to take the Colorado job. I think that, like you said, he said he's had interest from other Power 5 jobs. When he confirmed that he had been offered the Colorado job, he said, and I've had interest from other places too. Yeah. And I think ultimately we're going to see him wait around for what he believes is a better opportunity. That Colorado program's in really bad shape right now, coming off of what happened under Carl Durrell, maybe the worst team in Power 5 football for the majority of this season. And it's interesting for Deion because I think so often we have conversations about, black head coaches, minority candidates in coaching who unfortunately look at job opportunities and say, well, if I take the wrong one, even if these are so few and far between, I may not get the second chance that my white counterparts get. I may not get one of those opportunities for a redemption narrative or for a retread hire somewhere else. I do wonder if Deion Sanders would be uniquely insulated to handle that just because he's prime, because he's such a built-in name, he's already had success at one stop, and because he's a Hall of Famer. He brings the bona fides and the attention for his reputation that might transcend some of the things that plague other coaches that look like him. I still don't think he ends up taking that job, but I found myself thinking about that more and more lately as far as the scarcity of these positions and how it affects the choice and the options for minority candidates a lot of times.
It's funny that you brought that up about second chances because the most notable event that comes to mind for me is not in college, it's in the NFL, and it's the Arizona Cardinals. Yeah. You look at Steve Wilkes, who got 1 year with an absolutely atrocious roster and was a one and done. They bring in Kingsbury, who's done nothing but underperform for 4 years. Yep. And well, 4 years later, here he still is. This should be his last year, I would say.
Well, I mean, remember this offseason, they re-signed everybody.
Yeah.
They re-signed Steve Keim, their general manager. They re-signed Cliff, and they re-signed Kyler. And no one seemed to feel good about any of those.
Yeah.
It was like putting on a big Thanksgiving dinner when mom and dad are getting ready to get divorced. Like, everyone wants to make it look like we've got it together. And as soon as Kyler signs that contract, we hear about the homework clause.
Yeah.
And then we see the Cliff Kingsbury and him back and forth during the preseason about having Kyler call plays in the fourth quarter that seemed to have a little bit more tension than the headlines maybe would have indicated on the surface.
Yeah, it's not working at all. Third donut. You ready?
Third donut.
Let's do it. We've got a crumb cake donut. We've got jelly. We've got buttermilk.
Crumb cake.
Crumb cake donut it is, huh?
Or no, is this a cinnamon roll or a crumb cake?
Oh, that might be the butterfly.
Oh,
I'm actually going to have to... Yes,
Butterfly.
that is the butterfly. The crumb cake one is in the corner. So I don't know what's on top here. Are you getting coconut? What are we getting on top of that?
I'm not really sure. It just seems like sugar. I don't know. It's damn good, though.
That is. It's pretty doughy.
It's moister than I would have expected.
There it is. That's the word we needed on this show. We needed a moist reference, and we got it on the third donut. So one thing that you and I have in common. Well, we have a few things in common, right? We both just moved here. We both love food. We both love football. We both love The Bachelor. And I got to be honest, Mike, I really wanted to address this with you because it hurts my heart. I'm losing my love for The Bachelor.
Yeah. I've found that recently. Part of it is the difficulty of once football season starts.
Right.
Monday nights get monopolized pretty quick. Mm-hmm. And so I've missed a lot of this season. I've missed all of Bachelor in Paradise so far. I want to get caught up on that and Love is Blind Season 3 because I very much enjoyed Season 2 of that one. I parachuted in for that. And that one a little bit easier to consume just because it's less time. Like Bachelor in Paradise, you're also talking about towards the end some 2-night-a-week specials where it's 2 hours long. And if you get behind a little bit on that,
you're screwed.
There's too much content out here right now. That's the other thing we always run into. There's too much stuff. I don't recommend shows to people anymore.
Yeah.
I can't do it because it stresses me out when someone recommends it to me because they love it enough to bring it to me. And I'm like, listen, buddy, I'm not going to watch this.
Yeah.
I'm watching some like UNLV football cut up on my iPad most weeks or getting ready for a game or guilt tripping myself into something like that. I barely watch any television outside of shows that are on live during most of the season. It takes me months to read a book during football season. So I've stopped recommending shows to people for that reason, but it's also kind of hurt my Bachelor and Bachelorette watching, which sucks because for so long that's been my reality TV show du jour.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first thing I think we bonded over.
Yeah.
When we met at Radio Row down in, I believe it was Atlanta, ahead of that Super Bowl, we spent the whole show talking about Pilot Pete.
Man, what a time that was.
What a throwback, right?
Yeah, it's produced some iconic moments. I think, having windmills, the fence jump season that happened, I think with Colton. Mm-hmm. I'm actually in a group chat that's called the Fence Jump Fans that started during that season.
Wait, who is in this group chat? I need... that's incredible.
That is me, Mina Kimes, and Dan Orlovsky. So all three Bachelor aficionados at one point or another that were bonding over that season.
That's amazing. Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's just the quality of the show, I feel like, has declined a little bit. It's just... you had those iconic moments, right? You had the windmill with Pilot Pete. You had the fence jump. I mean, the first season I ever watched, JoJo was the Bachelorette. You had Jordan Rogers, right? And I just feel like lately it's just lost its flair. In Bachelor in Paradise this year, I didn't know a single person. I had missed maybe the last 2 seasons of The Bachelor, and I didn't know anyone on Paradise.
I still maintain that Paradise, every once in a while, they put a couple of randos in just to really test us, and I don't think those people were ever on a season, actually.
Okay, that's
and I
probably
think they make
true.
up a background for them. But, yeah, and I mean, you had the 2 Bachelorette season in this most recent one over the summer, which I think showed promise early and failed to execute late. Mm-hmm. I think you kind of saw whether it was intentional or not. And I don't put anything past the Bachelor Nation producers. They are some of the most calculated, diabolical people on earth with the things that they concoct. Yeah. But we saw how it kind of seemed like they were making it up as they went along with that. And at certain times, it didn't feel fair to the women involved. At certain times, it didn't feel fair to the men involved. And so it was clunky for something that I thought, because at this point, they got to find ways to spice it up. They've been doing the same thing for so damn long.
It's getting a bit old. It's definitely...
The one thing I will say, Jesse Palmer's been outstanding.
He has.
Jesse stepped
and
into
he looks great.
He's always looked great. He's the author of one of my favorite Bachelor moments of all time, where he forgot the girl's name at the rose ceremony, gave the rose to the wrong woman. Anyone who hasn't seen it, just Google that one. Spend some time on YouTube. It's an all-time Bachelor scene.
We've all been there, just maybe not on TV.
Yeah, that's why I was always empathetic, because for everyone involved, especially those first couple nights, it's a lot of names. No one's wearing name tags. And especially like when it's the Bachelorette and it's all these guys, you get a lot of the same dudes with the same haircut who are all like,
6'4" white dude, like same buzz cut.
I could say like embellishing their football career a little bit, or however you want to put it there. But Jesse stepped into a tough role, like Chris Harrison leaving that role after being the face of the franchise for so long. Jesse stepping into that pretty effortlessly and dominating. You want to talk about it, like Michael Strahan obviously is the pinnacle of former athletes doing a variety of things. Oh, yeah. He is probably the name at that spot, at least that I can think of right now. But you look at Jesse all across the board: college football at ESPN, hosting The Bachelor. He hosts a couple of like cooking channel shows or travel channel like food shows also. Man's a bit of a chameleon.
He's definitely, got that versatility. But you do too. I mean, come on, you've done the hot dog eating contest. Like, how many people have that on their resume?
Yeah, no, you know what? That's a fair point there. That is going to always be one of my prouder resume marks. I like to think I maxed out the amount of like weird things that I watched a lot as a kid that I wanted to take on at ESPN, because I was fortunate to get to do a bunch of stuff around radio and TV and all that. But getting to do the hot dog contest and cover that, getting to go and MC the Dr. Pepper halftime challenge, the Big 12, like amazing. Muscle memory. I feel like I should be flying to Arlington this weekend because I've done that the last 3 years. And so it was, a bunch of stuff like that was always really cool to be able to get to do. So not quite Jesse Palmer level, but like a Costco brand Jesse.
There you go. You're working your way up, man. What other dating shows do you watch? You said Love is Blind. You jumped in season 2. Yeah. I jumped in this year for season 3. Won't spoil it for you, but there's some characters.
I've seen some of the controversy that spilled over to TikTok.
Okay, and Bartise, does that name ring a bell?
Yes,
he sucks.
Okay, you said that's kind of, my sister's been watching. I parachuted in on one episode with her when she came out and we went to the Harry Styles concert.
Oh wow, okay, yeah. I need details.
I know, yeah, I had to just sprinkle that one in. As I got my Apple Music top plays for the year. Music for a Sushi Restaurant was the number 1 stream song.
Incredible.
Harry's House was the number 2 album for me, behind Midnights by Taylor Swift, which had an incredible late season surge to take the crown on that. But
Can't say I'm shocked.
Harry's House was incredible. That little British boy just wants people to have a good time.
That's amazing. So do you watch any other shows, or is it just Love is Blind and The Bachelor? It's hard.
Yeah, that's where I've been lately as far as the reality consumption there, just because I usually am trying to mix in like one other like defensible TV show. So House of the Dragon was big this fall.
Right.
Finishing up right now the last season of Atlanta on FX. I usually try and mix in the off season like at least one new anime, because I grew up watching Dragon Ball Z and a lot of that stuff. So I did Attack on Titan before the season got started, and I think Full Metal Alchemist was the next one that someone recommended to me. So looking down that path there, but it's trying to balance a bunch of things on the TV front. So I've got to be very choosy when it comes to the reality dating side.
It's so hard. I always tell people, because it's the same thing as you, when they recommend TV shows to me, I'm like, guys, I just don't have time. Baseball and football season, I don't have time. Catch me like in that little month between the Super Bowl and opening day for the MLB. I'm not that into the NBA or hockey, so like I'll dive in.
And you also got to think like trying to push a show on someone is the surest way to get them to not like it. It's the Ted Lasso effect, where people that were late additions to that heard so much about how great it was from everyone that I'm sure our natural reaction is to always be like, all right, it can't be that great. Like, leave me alone. But it is. Ted Lasso's that great. I'm not going to recommend it to you because I don't do that. But if it's just lying around and it happens to be there and you pick it up, wouldn't be the worst decision.
All right. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So you never made it around to Dated and Related on Netflix?
No.
Did you not see that?
Dated and Related.
Yes.
Please tell me that is not.
It's not like West Virginia.
All right. I was going to say, like, I had some questions. Yeah. That sounds real like Game of Thronesy.
Right. So this show, I actually have like a personal interest in it because I have a theory I'll get to. But this show, pretty much, it takes place in the south of France.
Okay.
And you go on with a sibling. And you and your sibling both, you have to multitask, which not a lot of young, attractive people are good at. You have to find love while also being a wingman or wingwoman for your sibling.
Oh.
So you get like sibling double dates. And
oh man.
So I've got a theory that I came out here about a year and a half ago and did a dating show pilot.
Wow.
And it was for a Netflix show. And on this pilot, I was on the show with my dad, and my dad's job was to pick a girl for me. I've never actually talked about this pilot on Ceraulo Sports Talk. So I have a theory that after a few edits and adjustments, maybe they changed it from parents to siblings, because there were five main characters, myself included, with our parent, and then there was a group of like 15 that the parents were choosing from for their kids to date. I have a feeling this might have been the pilot for Dated and Related.
Wow. You should absolutely run with that as your version. Like,
yeah, just put that in like the Raya profile.
Yes, don't let anyone ever talk you out of that. That's fascinating and also interesting to consider what the delta is between mom or dad's choice and brother or sister's choice for a potential spouse. Because I feel like even as similar as most families or as close as most families could be, what one offers or looks at versus the other is going to be so wildly different. And I'd have been probably more curious to see the parent version of that.
I mean, that would have been incredible. I feel like for most situations, the sibling would be much more shallow. But in my situation, my dad is probably the most shallow person I know. So he was great for that.
I think it also depends, because like both of my siblings are married. And so I think they're going to approach it different than if you've got a sibling like that on that show where you're both trying to wing for each other.
Yeah.
Like you're both single, so you might both in theory dip a little, have a little bit less depth to the pool, versus like my two married siblings are going to be like, no, we're getting you married, Mike. You're 33. Quit messing around with this. It's getting weird now.
Yeah, it's getting weird now. You can't be the single uncle forever, man.
No, exactly. Lord knows I'm trying, though.
You're killing that role. You really are. I see it on Instagram, man. It's like, how many DMs do you get every time you post a picture?
Yeah, no, the little kids certainly draw it out. But you know what? I like to say it's given me time to be able to be there now. My brother's got a kid, so that's my first actual nephew. But between all my buddies in college, we're 33 now. We graduated in 2012. Most of them got married in our mid-20s and started having kids by our mid to late 20s. And so I have probably 12 to 13 kids that have been calling me Uncle Mikey for the better part of the last 6 years. So I've had a lot of time to focus on that stuff, which has been cool because it's been fun to see my friends become parents and all that stuff. And so it has allowed me to focus less on my own dating life and not have to really put that at the forefront, because I can just lie and say, hey, listen, I'm focused on being there for the people in my life that I care about here.
I'm always there for the children, Yeah. I'm sure that really plays well.
Love the kids.
Mikey loves the kids. Before we get onto the fourth topic, last question, real quick one. Which Golic would you pick to set you up with someone?
Ooh. I would say probably my sister. I think she's got a kind of a good beat on that. I think her and I are really similar personality-wise. It's splitting hairs, because I think most of my family would do a good job on that. My mom would be the most overzealous. She'd be very excited about it because I'm the last of her kids that is unmarried, so it's kind of a goal now. My dad, God love him, it would be like the simplest version of it. It would just be, hey, be yourself, do what makes you happy. Like, oh, this person's nice. Like, he's got a very laid back approach to all this. My brother would be much the same way. He's also one that I think would do well in that, but I'll give Sydney the top billing.
There you go. Fourth donut. Let's dive in. So we've got the crumb cake one. Is that the one that you were interested in?
Yeah. Oh, wait,
that's buttermilk.
That's buttermilk still? All right, this is the crumb cake then?
Yeah, let's dive into this crumb cake. Little piece of heaven.
That is. That's a solid 8. That's really good. That's a really good donut.
That's moist. Not to overuse it, but the inside there was good.
Yeah, all of these have done a really good job of that. Like, these are made with tender loving care.
Yeah, so this and the fritter right now are my top 2.
I would probably put the butterfly or whatever that one is.
Oh yeah, the cinnamon roll butterfly?
I might put that in the 2 spot, but this is a close number 3.
Wow. Okay, there you go. So, fourth thing I want to get to. You mentioned, a lot of your college teammates have had kids recently.
Yeah.
Well, I want to bring up another one of your former college teammates, because there was a Deadspin article recently that said you are most famous for being Manti Te'o's teammate.
Yeah. Yeah.
That Deadspin article was incredible.
Yeah, they roasted my ass good.
All about nepotism in sports, and, just pretty much said you're nothing without your pops, and you're most famous for being Manti Te'o's teammate.
No notes.
What was your reaction to seeing that article?
Oh, I mean, I get the way that people feel now. As people have pointed out, the quality of Deadspin has regressed greatly over the years. So I thought they missed some opportunities for stuff. The only thing in that, like, seriously, the only thing that pissed me off was that they said anything even remotely, like, dismissive about Dad's career. You can say whatever you want about me. What he did is unassailable and 2-time Radio Hall of Fame worthy, so they can get bent on that and pound every inch of sand for what they said on that front. But no, I always said I don't begrudge anyone for how they felt about my entry into this business, right? I got my foot in the door at ESPN because of my last name. I make no secret of that. It was, painfully obvious to everyone around.
Yeah.
And I said early on there, if people felt some type of way about me being there, I get it. They're entitled to those feelings. Nepotism is something that has limiting and kind of gatekeeping effect on certain people that want to work their way into a lot of industries. We talk about it in coaching, and certainly we see it on the broadcast side. And so I said it was my job to go in and show, not tell, not say. It was my job to show people I was committed to doing the work. I had something to offer, and that I was going to be a great teammate. It was the same as walking into a locker room as a freshman. You're there to be seen, not heard, which sounds funny because my job was to talk. Yeah, which sounds funny, but I think more of the behind-the-scenes stuff, just about the approach, it was, all right, be seen, not heard. You got to show people through work. It's got to be like that mentality all over again of walking in and having to earn the trust of leadership in a given locker room. And, when I left ESPN, I got a lot of nice notes, and the Twitter day happens where everyone does it like it's your eulogy and they act like you're dead.
Right.
I got to watch it happen for Dad when we did his last show with ESPN Radio the year before. But seeing a lot of those notes, it outside of like the ego stuff, which we all like, seeing there, it was just nice to see that part at least had resonated with people that had been my teammates, and that to some extent I had accomplished some of what I set out to do, which was to just go and show I was committed to the work and earn the respect of the people I worked with along the way.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, at the end of the day, maybe, it was easier for you to get your foot in the door at ESPN than other people because of that, but, like, you got there and you killed it. And, we both know Justin Craig very well.
Yeah.
He's not putting anyone on air at ESPN if they don't deserve to be on air at ESPN.
No, exactly. And I hear people say that, you got your foot in the door, but, you had to keep yourself there. And I understand, and it doesn't change the conversation around nepotism. It is an important one, and one I understand I have a very awkward place in anytime that comes up, and I do discuss it. But again, it's like a lot of things that we see around this industry, and sometimes it gets pointed out with former players that were great that walk in and are immediately in a lead role there because of what they accomplished as a player. There's a whole variety of ways that people get there in life. People get to different places because of relationships, and again, I think while we can still have that conversation because it does affect marginalized groups more than anyone else,
yes,
it is always going to be about what you do when you're there and making sure that your impact is overall a positive one.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I respect the hell out of it. That article, when that popped up, it was cracking me up.
Oh, man, I was just...
They went in on you.
They got my ass good on that one. Good company on that one, too. It's just amazing now looking, too. The one thing I will say is I saw in that article, a lot of them were play-by-play guys, like,
right.
Noah Eagle,
Collinsworth.
Yeah, and Jack. And I saw Jack said the other day, it was like an awful announcing article, that he said he'd love to call a game with his dad. He thinks it'd be awesome with the chemistry they have. And I thought that was one of the cool things, is looking up and down that list. Most of those guys, and some guys whose, dads were far older, and some of whom no longer with us, Joe and Jack Buck.
Right.
Wes Durham, who does a great job with the ACC network and covering sports down there. The voice for the Atlanta Falcons also. With those guys, like, a lot of the people on that list didn't get to work with their dad. I got to work with my dad for 2.5 years, which will, be the career highlight for both of us for as long as we go here. But I just always thought that was cool, and I hope Jack at some point gets that opportunity. I got to call a couple of football games with my dad. That was the first shot we got to work together, was calling we called the Pinstripe Bowl together one year when it was Pitt and Northwestern. We called a Temple and Navy game at the Link together. So we got a couple of shots at that before the radio show that kind of were our first chance to do that and to get to have that father-son moment in a way that we weren't always sure was going to happen.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that's what everyone dreams of. I mean, look, like, my dad doesn't work in this industry, but I'm in this industry because of him.
Yeah.
And getting to do that with your dad is amazing. We've got 2 more donuts, 2 more topics. You want to get the jelly out of the way?
Yeah, let's go ahead and bite the bullet on that one. Yeah,
save the buttermilk for last.
Yeah.
Let's see. One bite.
It's a good glaze around it. Again, I like jelly in a lot of circumstances. Donuts just aren't one of them.
Okay. I actually love that. I mean, raspberry is probably my favorite jelly flavor. I'm going to give that a 7. You're probably, what are you leaning more, like 4?
I mean, it's a 5. It's well done.
Okay.
It's just not a donut. It's going to be last because I don't like jelly-filled donuts.
Right.
As far as the quality of it, everything's been top-notch. They know what they're doing.
Okay, well, sorry, I fucked up. I got a jelly donut in there, but the rest of it's been working out. Hey, let's stick to food. You are... Explain your role. Are you a brand ambassador for Chili's? Is that what's going on with you and your dad?
You know what? Yeah, like Chili's has new thing. Not to give them a bunch of free airtime on your podcast, but
no, it's what you're doing, man.
They've got a new happy hour menu there. They're trying to really show people that can be a place where you can go and watch the NFL games. They've got all the TVs. They've upgraded some of their menu items to be a little more adult friendly as far as the alcoholic beverage side of it. And they asked us to kind of help spread the word, and I've been going and eating at Chili's my whole life. Like, seeing a Chili's 2 inside an airport is a beacon of light in a dark, dark world for me, so it was awesome for a chance to go hang out there and do all that stuff.
I got very familiar with the Chili's in the St. Louis airport during the layover a few months back. So, I had you on a couple years ago, and we did the Thanksgiving snake draft, right? We're not going to do a draft, but... build your ideal Chili's order. I've actually been waiting all show to hear this.
Oh, yeah. All right. This one's easy.
So you appetizer, soup to nuts type.
Yep. Oh, no. I can give you start to finish. I've got this one pretty easy. So start off skillet queso with the chips. Chips and salsa come with everything, but the skillet queso is something you're going to want to add to the equation. Boneless buffalo wings. It's one of the few places I go and eat boneless buffalo wings.
Yeah.
I think they hit a good mixture of meat to breading ratio, the buffalo sauce sings, all the above. Meal is interesting, so I'll give you 2 options. For me, I would always go and get the grilled shrimp Alfredo. There was a stretch of 5 years where that was the only thing I ordered at Chili's.
Really? Okay, that one actually turns me off a little bit.
You know what? It shouldn't. Grilled shrimp pasta with a little bit of Texas toast on the side. Absolutely incredible. But if that's not your fare, I would also recommend the fajita trio. I would argue that the sizzling of the fajita tray coming out into Chili's is one of the few sounds you hear when you enter the gates of heaven. So that one you could certainly put in there. And then dessert style, you got to go the molten lava cake.
100%. So actually my order is kind of similar. It's the boneless wings to start. And again, it's the only place I'll ever get a boneless wing. I will go barbecue, though, over buffalo sauce. All right, I'm a bit of a slut for barbecue sauce.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
For the dinner, I'm going with the chicken chipotle honey crispers.
Yeah.
Those, kind of like you with the Alfredo. Like when I was a little kid going to Chili's, those were the only thing that I would order.
Yeah.
And even like nowadays, I just went to Chili's like a month ago for the first time in years. And just like 12-year-old fat boy in me was like, get those.
It immediately all comes rushing back.
It really does. And in the same sentiment, instead of getting a beer, I got a blackberry iced tea because that was the order. Their iced teas are actually really good.
Iced teas are really good. I just enjoy the mugs that they used for so long. Easy stackers on the way out for the wait staff too, and it makes everyone happy.
Absolutely. And then the chocolate molten lava cake. It's just that's the easiest winner. Like, you want to impress a girl by taking her to Chili's. I don't know if you'll get a second date if you take her to Chili's.
Listen, I think you got a good shot. Especially you finish that off with a molten lava cake.
That's the key right there. That's the you're going home together move.
It's you know what else is interesting too is we had this whole conversation without acknowledging what I think is like the foundation in most people's minds of Chili's, which is the baby back ribs, just because it's the premier jingle of my lifetime. The Chili's baby back rib guys are a trio or a quartet that I don't think the world knew it needed, but now I'm pretty sure could never have lived without.
Yeah, so you're a little older than me, right? Yeah. You got about 9 years on me. I can't picture a world without those guys.
Yeah, exactly.
So for you, maybe like they came in and they changed your life. For me, they were just always a part of life.
Yeah, I think they would be like the advent of social media. I didn't grow up with any of that stuff because of my age, but now it's been such an integral part. That is the Chili's baby back rib song for me. That's
amazing. Mike, we've got one more donut. We've got one more topic. Enjoy this one because this last topic, you might end up spitting it out.
All right, here we go. That might be number one.
The famous buttermilk. That's what they're known for.
Yeah. I can see why.
So I've got this thing in life where I always like to save the best thing for last in just a multitude of things that I do. And we might have saved the best for last here.
Truly. No, it's a lot like the fritter, but just butterier.
Yes.
Which thus makes it better.
Absolutely. Butter's always better.
Amen.
So saving the best topic for last. A lot of us have interesting stories growing up, of embarrassing things we did that our parents caught us doing. And a few years ago, I was taking a road trip. I went to St. Bonaventure, so up in the Buffalo area, close to the border. And I was driving up to Toronto, and I was listening to the podcast version of your old radio show up in Bristol. And your dad was telling a story about something you did on the family computer with your brother as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to hear that story from you, because I feel like I've heard it from your dad, and it's also been 3 years. What was the deal when you and your brother got caught watching porn on the family computer?
So I want to be clear. My brother got caught. I knew what I was doing and was a respectful adult as a 15-year-old.
That's how old you were? You were 15?
I don't remember. We were both in high school at that point, but so that was back at a time where, and I don't know if it's as common now just because laptops are so ubiquitous, but where you would have the house, like the family computer.
Right.
You'd have the one computer that was like in your parents' office that was the actual big Apple monitor computer that had the actual hard drive and all that stuff. And so that computer, which was in the office right in the middle of the house, like a brazen place to go and attack this kind of behavior. One day, my brother, we both get called to the mat by my dad, brings us down in the basement, and is like, what the hell are you guys doing? That's the family computer. Brought my sister down as a prop.
Oh, my
and
God.
said, do you want to tell her what you were watching? Do you want to tell her what you were doing? And we're sitting there like, do you want us to tell her? I don't think that's a very good idea. I always said my dad grew 3 sizes during that conversation. Yeah. He was full grizzly bear man. And so obviously we didn't say anything. And he sat down there and read us the riot act on that thing. And after I came to find out that it was because my brother had pulled up porn on the computer, and then didn't close it, didn't delete the browser history, didn't clear cookies or the cache or anything like that, just minimize the window down to the bottom right of the screen. So he just had full-blown porn hanging out at the bottom of the screen where anyone could access it.
And that was back when the monitors were huge,
yes! Right? So it was basically the size it would be on your phone right now. It was one of the more insanely lazy moments. And that was the only thing I was mad at my brother about, was that it was so lazy in the attempt. Obviously, my dad wasn't that mad, but he had to make a point because it was reckless behavior that my brother displayed there.
Yeah.
But I was just like, dude, just... The red, just hit the red dot instead of the yellow one, and definitely not the green one. These are very easy instructions that you can follow to make this experience safe for everybody. So yeah,
this could have been avoided.
It was so easily avoidable. But again, my brother's just sheer laziness with internet porn.
Do you remember what the video was? That you, do you remember your dad?
I'm not that sick. I can tell you that much. I can barely remember quarterbacks and people that I played with. I definitely can't sure place that video from 2005. But
that's when it was, huh?
I think at this point, man, I hit my head against a lot of people in college and drank a fair amount. So all dates are subject to a little bit of wiggle room and standard deviation. But yeah, man, that was definitely a tough one there. But yeah, do you want to tell your sister what you guys were doing up there on the computer? And we're just like, oh no, it'd be really awkward.
It's all right. When I did it, I didn't have any siblings yet. My siblings are all pretty much a lot younger than me. I feel like this is a bad look. I was 9 years old when I got caught.
Oh my God. What?
So I was 9 years old. It was the family computer, and I was a big Disney Channel kid, right? So I used to watch. I used to watch a lot of High School Musical when I was in that age.
All right, man. I was really worried about the direction that this was going in front of live microphones. I'd be like, you don't have to do this.
So, a certain High School Musical star had pictures get released.
Oh, God.
And 9-year-old me was like, I thought she was hot in that movie. Let me see what all the talk's about. And it was on the family desktop.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Yeah. This a lesson learned for everyone, man. Number one, nowadays...
Just do it on the phone.
Everyone's got their own devices, but also just, be respectful of other people's space. If you're operating in a space like that multiple people use, be smart about it. Understand it's not just your computer. This might be your moment. It's not your computer.
Definitely was my moment. Definitely.
Yeah, no, God, that was definitely your moment. I want to make that clear. That was Joe's moment and not my moment. That was his moment that he belongs to on this podcast.
Oh, that's incredible. That's incredible. This was the Ceraulo Thick Six. First time that's ever been done. Mike Golic Jr., man. It was great to have you back in person. First time in like 2 years, I think, that we've done this in person, right?
Yeah, no, nice to be able to, it's been a wild last few years for everyone and a bad one, so getting to do stuff like this, always fun, man.
Man, thanks so much for coming in. That's it, episode 90 of Ceraulo Sports Talk. I'll see you guys next week.